You are all set, Mr. Chairman. You're muted, sir.
Thank you, James. Okay, welcome everybody to the Town Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for January 13th, 2021. And you could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United
States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, if Noreen, if you could do the roll call, I'd appreciate it.
You're still muted, Noreen.
All set?
All set.
Okay, Chairman Payne,
Here.
Commissioner Claffey,
Here.
Commissioner Fox,
Yeah.
okay, Commissioner Havens,
Here.
Commissioner Linares,
Here.
Commissioner Sobieski,
Yeah.
Commissioner Woods,
Here.
Commissioner Braverman,
Here.
Commissioner Gill,
Here.
Commissioner Haggerty.
Here.
All
Okay,
set.
thank you very
Okay.
much, Noreen.
No problem.
The approval of the agenda, do we have any changes? Renata?
You're muted, Renata.
I believe we have an 8-24 we have to add.
Correct. Amend the agenda to add petition 0.221. This is an statutory referral under the general statute section 8-24 for acceptance of the demolition of the 10 that was filled out to the planning commission last night, and it was not included in the agenda because the school happened to put anything that
Renata, we're having a hard time. We're having a hard time hearing you, Renata. If you could repeat that. This is. We're going to add this to the agenda, the 8-24, correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Please add that to the agenda.
Where would you like to add that? Under new business?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Am I audible?
Yes, Renata.
I cannot hear you. So by just by looking at your face, I believe you said that you can hear me. So I will just add that you add this to petition under new items, under new business. If we can issue this referral under new business tonight, that would be great. And I will try and figure out why my speakerphone or audio or whatever here is not working.
Oh, okay. Very good, Renata. Thank you very much. So that'll be added. Is there any objection to that from the other members?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, if hearing no objections, we'll add that.
Can you, I'm sorry, can you repeat what that 8-24 is so everyone can hear it? Because I didn't hear it.
Yeah, it's an 8-24 mandatory referral under the 8-24 for some land on Culver Street. Let me, I don't have the petition number or anything. Renata
Like
has that.
70, is it like 70 Culver?
70 Culver Street.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yes, Dominic, that's correct. It's 70 Culver Street, and the family wants to make a gift of it to the town.
Okay, okay. So that'll be under new business.
That's petition number 02-21.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're under public participation right now on the agenda. So if there's anybody that would like to talk under public participation, please raise your hand.
We have 2 members of the public on, Mr. Chairman. If they are
Okay.
interested in speaking, they can use the raise hand function in the Zoom application or by pressing *9 on their telephone to be recognized.
Thank you, James.
It does not appear we have anybody at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we're going to move on to the zoning enforcement officer report. Mr. Hinckley's here with us. Before we get into that, I just want to make sure that we touch upon it a little bit. I want to make sure that Mr. Hinckley doesn't get the wrong impression from us. I think moving forward, and I think the commission should talk about this, is that unless there's a real safety concern, I wouldn't be bothering some of these businesses for some of these violations with what's going on with how well the businesses are doing. I just think that it's a time, and maybe Mr. Hinckley, you could, am I correct that that's how you're proceeding or been directed to proceed?
Yes, the town manager, especially with signs, wants to give all the businesses every opportunity they can to, enhance their business, et cetera, and to keep them viable for the foreseeable future while we're going through these issues.
Thank you very much. And I think the majority of I think everybody on the commission agrees with that. And I'll open it up to the commission to see if they have any questions for Mr. Hinckley on what he's reported, or questions on or comments on what we've been just discussing. Anthony, go right ahead.
My questions, I kind of, I was a proponent of, some of these things are safety issues. That's the only concern I have with the some in-ground banners. If they're a safety issue for visibility for cars, fine if you're out and about. Other than that, I'll just go on the direction of our town manager. On a second item on the report, I have a couple questions. I don't know how we're doing it now. Maybe it needs to be discussed, but I'm going to use one, for example, 260 Stam Road. It's on page 3 of 4. It's purely for an example because it has some good meat to it. How are we handling, and I know this report is not generated, it's generated by Eric, but it's not the system. It's the system issue I think I have a problem with is, if you look at 260 Stam Road, we were out, we looked, we gave him an extension, and, from looking at the report, to me, the last contact you had with them was back on the 4th of December. We're at the 30-day. We're at the second meeting of January, the last of the month. And it seems like, is there any way to get what the update is within a week of our meeting, so we kind of have some more meat to it? Meaning, to me, if I just look at that, some of these dates, it's beginning of December, middle of December, right. How can we get that monthly thing brought up to within
it is the way it's been in the past. It has been the monthly report, the 1st through the 30th. So yes, when you get it, you are missing some information because they have to post it on the website. So it gets run on the last day of the month. and post it, and it gets, put into the agenda packet and everything else, because once we put it in the agenda packet, there could still be information that you would be missing.
Okay.
Might be 3 or 4 days out.
Okay.
I
know maybe Stam Road's not a good example because it seems like it's a little more in legality stage now with the town and the owners.
I can tell you there's probably about 3 or 4 other entries for that. And they've actually, on the agenda, I believe they've applied for an auto related use permit going forward. So it's a work in progress.
So I guess maybe I'll open it to
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you,
Yes,
Renata.
So if I may, through chair, perhaps try and answer this in a more general sense than this specific situation. When we do enforcement, we always allow a certain amount of time for compliance. So when the first visit happens, then we give them, depending on a violation, so many days to comply.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't, we issue a notice of violation, which I believe is 7 or 10 days to comply. And then after that, there is a cease and desist and citations, and all of it comes with a specific timing. Once we give somebody 10 days to comply, if the meeting happens in between those times, normally zoning officer would not be going out there during that sort of like waiting to comply period.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea behind all enforcement is, and this is my firm theory, being that I started this career from the enforcement end to begin with, is if we do not follow through, we better not even begin, because we're definitely sending a wrong message. So once we start, we do follow through, and I will make sure, I know that Eric does it, and I will make sure that that continues. It's just a matter of like where in the process we are.
I guess I asked that because there's some properties that I have to assume on a monthly report that never get reported to us that they've been finalized. I think I brought this up prior to both of you guys being here in our town. Or not really Eric, because he's been around on the other side, but I know there's violations that kind of go off this list with none of us seeing it, because if you completed it sometimes, would it make the list? Like, it seems like the date and the lag date time is what throws me off with like 366 Maple Hill Avenue. Like, when would be the next time? That's on page 3. Like, when would be the next time you'd be going out there to inspect it if you granted an extension? Would you go out on the 5th? Like, it doesn't say anything to us as a group.
Right.
Like, you granted an extension for what? Like,
Understood. And yes, I have been out there since then. So anything that gets, some of these, they're not necessarily going to fall off. If I go next week in January, you will see it on the January report that, hey, I was there and I did X, Y, Z.
Okay.
So
cool.
They will be there.
Okay.
I got
Very
you.
good.
I'm just trying to get a feel for
Sure.
how everyone who's in the new positions are, I know you're not new to enforcement. You've been on another side, so I get it. So, Okay, I'm cool.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Anthony. Is there any other questions or comments from the other commissioners concerning the zoning enforcement?
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right. Hearing
Dominic, if I may, I do have
Certainly.
a letter here from a business owner that they wanted me to read tonight, if I could. It's about,
Certainly.
Okay. This is from Barbara Parafati at 3320 Berlin Turnpike. You'll see she's on the zoning report she did remove her waiver when I asked. She gave me this letter. It says, Town Planning and Zoning, to whom it may concern. Friday, December 11th, I received a phone call from Eric Hinckley from this department informing me that I had to take down the waving flag. I understand that all towns have rules they have to abide by for safety and driving distinctions or for other various reasons. However, I'm asking if there can be an exception made. My business is set far back from the road with a long driveway. All my existing clients and new clients use that waving flag as a landmark to find my salon. They have all thanked me for putting it up, and thank God it's there, because they said they would have missed the turn. Times are hard enough these days with with one more thing holding business like mine back. On behalf of my business, neighbors, and myself, I'm asking that you please make an exception and allow us to keep the flags and signs on the side of the road. Our business has suffered enough due to COVID, and the shutdowns can't afford to suffer even further. Please consider my request. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thank you very much. You know, I have no problem with that. As a matter of fact, I think you should go back to the owner and anybody else that you've asked to remove those flags and tell them that they could put them back out. I have no objection with it, but I'd like to hear from my other commissioners to make sure that they have no objection.
I have no objection, Mr. Chairman. I think that's a great idea.
Okay,
Especially after the report that Renata gave us last month on the possibility of how many businesses we could possibly lose. That's scary. So I think we need to bend over backwards to allow this at this point.
very good. Thank you, Commissioner Woods.
I have,
Commissioner
Fox,
Fox, go right ahead.
I'm sorry. I have no objection as long as Commissioner Claffey mentioned, there's no safety hazards involved, and it's not, really up there in the right of way. I think with the reflections, that is far enough back where it's not going to make any problems. Thank you.
Yeah, the ones that I ask them to put back, I'll make sure that, we get them a little more behind the curb. I won't let them put the A-frames right out beside the road, but the waivers will allow them to put those back up.
Okay, even the A-frames, as long as they're not creating a sightline problem or a hazardous situation, I have no problems with anything. Commissioner Lenars?
Yeah, you just kind of stole my thunder there, Mr. Chairman. I was going to echo exactly what you just said. I understand the regulations in place, and I understand the times that we're having. So I feel for you, Eric, that you have to go out there and kind of go on both sides of the fence on this one. But it's a good business practice to do what we're doing. The right-of-way thing, I understand it, and I'm behind it, and I applaud the regulation. But if it's a sightline violation, obviously that's a big difference. So to help these businesses in this trying times, I don't envy your job at all, but I appreciate what you do in helping the businesses out. So I think that's great.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Commissioner Claffey, did you have anything?
No, I'll save it for when COVID's over. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hinckley, there's a handful that you'd have to go back to. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's most of them, honestly, they probably took them down for a day or two and put them back up. But the ones that I touch base with, I will certainly get back.
When you're talking to the businesses, trying to do whatever you can for them, just tell them that they may be illegal, but you can keep them up.
May I, Commissioner, through you, or Chairman, through you?
Go ahead, Commissioner Claffey.
I guess my only concern is, the ones that are in the right of way, and are we asking them to move, if they're in the right of way, move them off the right of way? But I'm going to revert back to the DOT right of way requirements, and we really need to know, and Stanley, help me if I'm wrong with your DOT experience. We as a town come in and say, yeah, you can put it in, but don't put it near the telephone pole, but the telephone pole might not be the delineation point. And then he moves it 5 feet back, and then the state guy drives through and rips it out. So,
I don't think anybody.
I think we still, and I'm for the businesses to know they're there, but I think we need to really get in contact with the state DOT right away people and just confirm that we are deviating from what we usually have, what we have on the record. I mean, it has nothing to do with the business, but I'd hate for them to move it. Then the DOT comes through and takes it, and then they're calling Eric like, "What, you just told me to move it? Now it's gone."
Okay, Commissioner. Point well taken, Commissioner Claffey. I'll have Mr. Hinckley can communicate with the DOT and tell them that we're not enforcing anything due to the COVID. Actually, if the businesses put something out there, takes it, as long as they know that we're not taking it. I think
Mr.
we'll be
Chair,
okay.
if I may suggest, rather than having a zoning officer that had already informed people or sent letters and whose job is really to enforce zoning regulations, conveying this message. We are going to be reaching out to all the businesses, and I will start with the ones that Eric has notified, and I will tell them that at this time the town has decided not to enforce that. So it kind of alleviates us for perhaps having some liability outside of what we would have wanted. So let me actually do that for him. And then as far as the state goes, if they are not enforcing within their right of way, that's their decision to do.
Yeah, I don't think the state's, I think the state's got more important things to worry about right now than a few signs in the right of way. Commissioner Sobieski.
Amen.
Yeah, my suggestion is, again, like I did 2 weeks ago, our last meeting, contact District 1, Kevin Campbell. He's the guy that orders the signs removed. And just tell him what you're doing. Get some type of okay from him. That's all you really need.
Okay. I'll have Renata can handle that with the zoning enforcement officer. I think that's fantastic that the staff is reaching out to all the businesses. I think that's an excellent idea. We need to do whatever we can to help the businesses in the town. So if there's no other comments, we're going to move on. And do we have any remarks from commissioners on anything else? Then our first public hearing is Commissioner Havens. Could you read the procedures for the public hearing?
I have a copy of those in front of me.
You do?
I do not have a copy.
Oh, all right.
Mr. Chairman, I have it. Do you want me to read it?
Yes, please, Commissioner Woods.
Petition 39-20, zoning text amendment, section 3.19.8.
Excuse me, Commissioner Woods.
Yep.
I'm trying to read the procedures for the public hearing
that
first.
I don't have.
Okay. It's,
Renata, you're muted still.
Mr. Chair, I have the procedures if you want me to read them.
Thank you very much, Renata.
Procedures for public hearings. The order of proceedings at public hearings shall be as follows. A, conveying by chairman. B, reading of the notice by the commission secretary or a commissioner designated by the chairman to act in his stead. C, identification and location of the property involved by the town planner. D, a statement of the issue to be considered by the chairman or the town planner. E, presentation by applicant limited to 20 minutes unless specific extension is granted by the chair. F, persons wishing to speak in favor of the application limited to 2 minutes per person. G, persons wishing to speak in opposition to the application limited to 3 minutes per person. H, rebuttal by the applicant limited to 5 minutes total. I, rebuttal by the opposition limited to 5 minutes total. During a public hearing, it shall be within the discretion of the chairman whether the time limitation should be varied slightly, provided the commission consents to any such variance. In no case shall an extension be for more than 20% of the allotment indicated above, or 1 minute, whichever is greater.
Thank you very much, Renata. And the first petition, Commissioner Woods, if you could read petition 39-20.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, now it's my turn. Petition 39-20, zoning text amendment, section 3.19.8.4, transit-oriented development, overlay district, to provide height, area, and yard requirements for TOD zone, Fenn Road Associates, LLC, applicant owner, Mark S. Shipman, 433 South Main Street, Suite 319, West Hartford, Connecticut. Contact.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. And the applicant, I believe Attorney Shipman, is he on?
It should be. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I can't see me, so maybe you can.
I can see you looking good.
I'm not going to take a lot of your time. My name is Mark Shipman, and I represent the Penn Road Associates LLC, and we have requested a text change to permit. Originally, we asked for height, area, and yard changes to the TOD zone. After discussion with staff, we have agreed that we would be happy to limit that to just area restrictions to reduce the area requirements to the same as those in the B-BT zone. The purpose of that, we think, is consistent with both your plan of conservation and development and the needs of the town to create more opportunities within the TOD zone by making the area required for businesses to be less than an acre that is now the hallmark. We in my the discussion with the planner, we could cite to you a number of areas of the plan of conservation and development. The plan in under strategies suggests that you want to maintain, strengthen the existing town center, establish transit-oriented sites at appropriate location when transit stations have been established, enhance and improve the quality and development at major commercial gateways, Cedar Fen being one of them. Consistency with state plan in principle 3, concentrate development around transit sites along major transportation corridors to support the viability of transportation options and land issues. There's a finding there that the 2 new transit stations are envisioned for Newington, and the plan recommends establishment of mixed use and transit oriented development. And finally, and the implementation suggests that land use regulations, since the zoning and subdivision regulations are important tools to implement plan recommendations, the commission should undertake a review of those regulations in the near future, making whatever revisions are necessary to implement plan recommendations. The plan should be used by the Town Plan and Zoning Commission when it makes decisions on zoning amendments for map changes, setting density standards, property use, and building lot criteria. These, as far as we're concerned, these provisions make it clear that Newington is counting on the transit-oriented development to continue and enhance future growth. The provisions we suggest maximize the opportunity for development in the TOD zone. That is what the proposed text change seeks to do, and it seeks to maximize the sites which can be developed within that zone. I don't think it requires a lot more discussion. It's kind of self-explanatory. An acre in these areas, which are small development areas, is a large amount of land. The applicant is in the process of proposing a mixed-use development in connection with development of its sites, and this will enhance both the tax base and opportunities within the town. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Attorney Shipman. I appreciate your comments. And I'm going to, at this time, I'm going to turn it over to our town planner, Renata, to give her staff report on this.
Sure. So as Attorney Shipman indicated, when this regulation amendment was first discussed, this was what we had thought of, myself included, because I did meet with an applicant and we discussed to some extent, how this proposal should be submitted. And I will admit, this was the first week when I worked in the town, so I wasn't very familiar with requirements of Berlin Turnpike zone. But so after the application was submitted and we conducted review, I realized that while in my opinion, reducing the size of a lot area is very compatible with the TOD zoning district. And to some extent, we perhaps should at some point look at the requirements of the PD zone itself when it comes to the minimum lot size, because it may be more than perhaps the zoning district intended to do to begin with, but more certainly in TOD, the point of TOD is to allow perhaps more intense development in a compact kind of settings and in compact kind of design. So reducing the lot area absolutely makes sense. However, I did note that in my opinion, reducing by marrying this to the Berlin Turnpike, we would also reduce the allowed building height, which that would not make sense for the TOD, as well as the frontage size would increase. And that also is not consistent, at least not in my opinion, with the TOD zone. Now, in order for applicant to accommodate the development that they have planned for this property, they don't care about either height or the lot frontage. To them, it's good either way. I just think for us, when we review these regulations, it makes sense to consider what the TOD is about. And therefore, I recommend in my draft motion that you exclude anything with regards to changing the allowed height of the building or allowed frontage for the lots, and just simply approve reduction of the lot area in the TOD district.
And that all works for the applicant, correct, Renata?
I will let Attorney Shipman answer, but my understanding is that it does.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you, Attorney Shipman. Is there any questions from the other commissioners on this for the town planner, or for any questions from the applicant? Commissioner Sobieski, go right ahead.
Yes, couple quick questions here. We're basing this, and maybe I'm wrong, but I just want to get it clear. We're basing the lot reduction size on the fact that people are going to be using the buses to get there. Am I correct?
Renata?
No, we are basing the reduced lot area to the fact that the purpose of the TOD zoning district calls for a development of not kind of corridor development, but more dense, compact development. So you do not physically need a large lot in order to accommodate parking and building and all this other stuff. It's all meant to be more compact development of a higher intensity.
Okay, so my question is, if somebody does not use the busway and goes to visit these businesses or whatever is going to be built there, where do they park?
We do have requirements for parking in the TOD district too. So the requirements for parking do not change based on the size of the lot.
Okay, that was my one question, because that didn't quite make sense with what you had put out originally in this. The other question is, are there going to be sidewalks on that side of the road?
Well, the
sidewalks
would be part of a site plan issue at a later date.
Okay.
Is that correct, Renata?
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is just a regulation amendment proposal. For all that it's worth, anywhere we in future apply the TOD regulation, this would also apply. So this is not specific to this particular development, to their particular site. It is a matter of, does this meet our POCD? Does it meet the purpose of the zoning regulation for that district? And does it make sense? Those are the three things that you're looking at right now.
I understand. I was just concerned. That's all. I just wanted to bring the point up. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sobieski. And so that would be, I would be concerned about that too. Later on, when a site plan comes in, we'll make sure that there's adequate sidewalks.
The other thing too, I went by Starbucks the other day, last Saturday, to get a coffee, and the line was wrapped all the way around onto Penn Road. So you may have a traffic issue down there at some point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Sobieski. Commissioner Fox?
No, that's okay. I just answered my own question in my head. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Fox.
Thank you, Attorney Shipman, for that great report, by the way.
Okay. Is there any other commissioners that have any questions?
I just have one question through you, Chair.
Go ahead, Commissioner Claffey.
I'm reading the comments and how it coincides back to, you reference like commercial corridors and the Berlin Turnpike. Are there any other areas outside of this specific location in town where if we go ahead and make this change here, that it can come and Renata, be useful or beneficial, or the reverse of useful and beneficial to other development in town, in different zone, all the commercial, industrial, everything? Can it hurt or help?
So this particular regulation amendment only applies to the TOD overlay. Right now, as far as I know, the only area that has this overlay is the area that you are all talking about, by Starbucks and bus station and that. If the TOD overlay was to be located as an overlay zone elsewhere, this would also apply. Going further, I think in further discussions, we should also look at the PD zone and perhaps some other zoning district and evaluate whether our lot area requirements are too high.
Gotcha.
Those districts, but that would be a separate kind of an issue.
Okay, I just want to make sure that, I was reading through your thing. I agree with what you're saying. I just want to make sure we're not confusing other commissioners, or if there's any other questions, that this is specific to that section of town. And in the future, we may need to review other areas that could be beneficial by doing what we'd be doing over in this section of town.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Renata, for answering his questions. Is there any other questions from the commissioners? If there's no other questions, I'm going to open it up to the public. If there's anybody from the public that would like to wish to speak in favor of this or against.
We do have two individuals. Nobody is responding that they are interested in speaking at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And I'll go back to the applicant to find out if there's anything else that he'd like to add.
No, the only thing with respect to the last question, what we're really doing here is making the TOD zone consistent with other business zones in the community, rather than making it unusual. It's unusual now, and this will make it more consistent with other areas where you're looking to have businesses rise.
Thank you, Attorney Shipman. If there's no public.
Mr. Chair,
yes.
If I may just add also, because I forgot to do that, this text amendment was referred to CROG, and we sent notifications to New Britain. We haven't heard anything from New Britain, and CROG did not have any concerns with regards to this application.
Okay, thank you very much. I think this is going to be an asset to the TOD area. And I would suggest somebody making a motion to close petition 39-20 and move it to old business for action.
Make a motion that we close petition 39-20 this evening and push it to old business to act on tonight.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Claffey. And we have it seconded by Commissioner Fox. Any discussion? Any questions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next petition -41-20. If I could have Commissioner Lenars read that.
Petition 41-20, special permit, section 6.6, sale of alcoholic beverages, Trans Berlin Corporation, owner Renee Lopez, 2434 Berlin Turnpike, Newington, Connecticut, applicant contact.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. And is the applicant could state their name and address for the record and give us a small presentation. Or Renata, would you like to fill commissioners in on this?
I can. So as you can see, actually, this application was handled by Eric Hinckley in my office. The proposal is essentially to allow sales of alcoholic beverages in an existing restaurant, Salsa Tequila, which is a restaurant in the plaza on Berlin Turnpike at 2434 Berlin Turnpike. It's a long one-story, I believe, building with a bunch of storefront, this restaurant being one of them. Our regulations require special permit for liquor permits everywhere. And this is one of those examples where we feel that this is essentially a no-brainer to be approved. It meets all of the distance requirements that are specific in our regulations to sale of liquors, because we have some specific requirements for this use itself. And then we also have a general sections that lists a bunch of criteria for commission to review when it comes to any special permit. In our opinion, it meets all of the specific as well as general criteria. If you agree with us, that will be great. If you have any questions, you're welcome to ask them. But again, this is a pretty straightforward kind of a use in a commercial building on Berlin Turnpike, and there are no distance issues here.
Okay, thank you, Renata. Yes, this is in the O'Neill Plaza building. Is there any, Commissioner Claffey, do you have a question?
The only nothing wrong with the only question I have is that petition 41-20, the owner of Trans Berlin is Thomas O'Neill. We just need to make sure it's written properly as owner of the property, and she is Renee Lopez as a tenant and the / applicant. It's read in, just wording has to be done on the petition.
I believe we have addressed that to the plan review, and I'll ask Eric to confirm that, but we have reached out to them and actually received a letter from owner authorizing the applicant to submit this application. Eric,
yeah, he
just clerical. Just clerical.
Yeah, the owner did sign the application.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from any other commissioners? Pretty straightforward. Is there? Hi, does the applicant would like to say something?
Is your microphone?
We can hear you.
Can they hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, I just appreciate that you guys approved my request. That's pretty much it. Thank you. Thank you for concerning it. Thank you.
Very good. Yep, we have a new business there. How long have you been there now?
We're gonna be almost a year.
Almost a year.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Fox, do you have a question?
Well, yeah, but I'll wait till we see what kind of public participation is there. I was just going to move that we move it to old business.
Okay. All right. Yes, Commissioner Fox, you're absolutely correct. We have a public hearing on this. So Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak, either in favor or against this proposal?
At this time, we have 3 members of the public on. Nobody has so far has indicated their intent to speak on the application.
We'll give everybody a couple minutes, a minute or so, just to make sure there's no public comment. Renata, is this a full liquor or is it beer and wine?
Mr. Lopez, is it beer and wine?
Yes, it's, yes, just beer and wine. Yes,
Beer and wine, okay.
just beer and wine. Yep.
Thank you.
And also, I
Okay.
will just add, with this particular application, there are really no changes that they indicated to either their hours of operation or anything with regards to exterior of that building. So we're just allowing them essentially to sell beverages, liquor
Okay.
in their restaurant.
Very good. Well, hearing that there's no public out there that's wanted to speak, if there's no further, if there's no other comments or questions from the commissioners, I'll entertain Commissioner Fox. Maybe you could make a motion to approve this. I'm sorry, make a motion to close this public hearing and move it to old business, possibly.
So moved. We close the public hearing tonight and move to old business for a decision tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner Fox. Commissioner Sobieski, second this, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously to close this and move it to old business for action. Next thing on our agenda is approval of minutes for December 9th, 2020. I'll entertain a motion.
Chairman Payne, I have a question on the minutes.
Certainly. Go ahead. Commissioner Sobieski.
Yeah, let me just give me a minute. Okay.
Yep.
On page 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paragraph down, it should read Berlin Turnpike varies between 250 and 300 feet, not 650. Most of the buildings would be in the state right away at that case.
Thank you, Commissioner Sobieski. Commissioner Fox?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say I'll be abstaining since I wasn't at the last meeting.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Fox. Renata? Go
Mr.
ahead.
Chair, if Mr. Sobiewski could just repeat this, I did not.
Yep. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paragraphs down where it says Commissioner Sobieski.
Mhm.
He says, on the second line, he says the right of way on the Berlin Turnpike varies between, it
200.
says 650 to 300. It should say 250 to 300.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So I'll entertain a motion to approve with the, as amended.
Make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Thank you, Commissioner Sobieski. Do I have a second?
Second, Claffey.
Seconded by Commissioner Claffey. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And Commissioner Fox is abstaining.
That's correct. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Fox. Okay. Next thing is new business. If I could have,
Excuse me, Commissioner Payne.
yes, Commissioner Sobieski.
It says two minutes here. We should have the special minutes also that we have to approve, I think.
Yeah, good catch. Thank you very much. Entertain a motion for the special meeting minutes of 12/9/20.
Make a motion to,
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Sobieski and Commissioner
Second,
Claffey.
Claffey.
Second it.
I'll second it, Claffey.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And motion carries unanimously. Commissioner Fox, are you going to abstain from that too?
That's correct. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And if Commissioner Havens could read the petition 40-20, I'd appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman. New business petition 40-20, site plan modification at 50 Mill Street Extension, New Meadow Elderly Housing Management, Inc., owner applicant Stephanie Segura, 127 Washington Ave, 5th floor east, North Haven, Connecticut. Contact.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant here?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Pete Parent with CHA Associates representing the applicant.
Hi, Pete. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about why you need the parking spaces and a little bit about the facility. Is it an assisted facility or just maybe you could tell us a little bit about the facility?
Sure. So the existing facility is the 32-unit elderly housing complex. It's not necessarily an assisted living facility. Based on the
one second, Pete.
Yep.
We're going to make a decision on the earlier application a little later in the minutes, Ms. Lopez. Okay. Go ahead, Pete. I'm sorry.
No problem. So the existing facility, it's age restricted housing, elderly housing, however you want to phrase it, but it's not an assisted living facility. And based on my visits there, it seems to be a pretty active senior community. Hence the reason why they are in need of some additional parking spaces out there. The town regulations require a half a space per unit, which would only require about 16 spaces out here. Existing, they have 21. And they have a lot of issues with unavailability of parking, which leads to people parking in places where they shouldn't, causing some safety issues. So they're requesting to add 8 additional parking spaces, 4 on the southwest corner of the existing parking lot, 1 in the northwest corner of the existing parking lot, and then 3 additional spaces off of the Hammerhead turnaround from Wells Drive North. Those 3 spaces are being envisioned to be staff parking or visitor parking and not general resident parking due to the additional travel distance around to get to those spots. So, with the additional impervious area, we did do some additional drainage work and in conversations with the town engineer. I was informed that you guys had recently repealed some of the LID regulations. So we may be retooling some of this drainage to, meet the standard of Connecticut Stormwater Manual, but not necessarily try and force LID measures in where the soils don't necessarily support them.
Yep. Ed, what about the sidewalk area? Was that something that you felt necessary or the owner felt necessary to correct? Or was that a recommendation or?
Yeah, so in discussions with the owner, they indicated that delivery trucks and some of the larger vehicles have a little bit of trouble navigating that turnaround and then making that hard, double turn to make that corner. So we tried to soften that corner a little bit based on that discussion with them.
Okay. I've been over there. I've taken a good look at it. I've had a commissioner talk to me and was extremely concerned with cutting into the existing buffer there at the end of the hammerhead there. So that was a concern. And then my biggest concern was a tremendous amount of underground work for just a few spaces. Seemed awful unnecessary. I personally think that you could easily gain 5 spaces over at where you had 4 spaces. And instead of doing underground work, maybe just a permeable paving stone, and then 3 additional spaces if you make a small modification at the southern end of the hammerhead. And that way, none of that buffer area is disturbed. I'm going to open it up to the commissioners, and then I'm going to make a recommendation to the staff. So I'll Commissioner Claffey, I'll open it up to you first.
One question I have is, currently, Peter, is it at full capacity, the elderly housing, the 32 units?
To my knowledge, yes, it is full.
Okay. And then, let me just go through some notes. Go ahead. If someone else has a question, they can move forward.
All right.
That was one. I have more questions, but I'll wait.
Okay, Commissioner Haggerty and then Commissioner Sobieski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My internet is terrible, and I've come and gone from the meeting probably 6 times so far. I've apologized if that's being disruptive at all, but I'm working on my internet. That's all.
No problem. All right. Thank you. Commissioner Sobieski?
Yes, I have a question on the hammerhead where you want to put the additional spaces. Will that interfere with the town plowing in that area? That truck has got to go up, push snow to the north and push it to the south.
I think they push everything to the north. They don't push, I don't think they push anything to the south. I think they go in and, and they probably push it a little bit towards those parking spaces. So yeah, it's possible it could come in a way. I really don't recommend putting the parking spaces there because the residents are, half of the buffer gets destroyed. And I know the residents over in that area are going to be upset. Commissioner Woods?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of questions and maybe one concern. That Center Island, while I understand why they want to do it, I'm sure the vehicle traffic going around it is probably coming up on it. But I'd like to see some green space left. So maybe if they could take, a third of it and reduce the size of the circle, but still leave a planting bed or some green space in there, I think it would look much better. And I am struggling also with the amount of underground drainage that's going to be required to pick up these 8 spaces. I think there's something that we need to be able to do to work with this applicant to bring this into a more realistic project for them, in my opinion.
Thank you, Commissioner Woods. I agree with you. It seems like a lot of unnecessary work. Commissioner Claffey, do you have another comment?
Well, going hand in hand with the first, my biggest concern is one of the buffer. I mean, those trees are on that be the north east corner of the building. That buffer pretty much goes from where, if you look at your plan, if you're looking at it on page sheet 2 is a clearer look than sheet 1, but the buffer there is one that I wish every developer would use as an example, because it is buffered at a height and the trees now have grown to their highest. They're pine trees. And when you come down Wells Drive, you see the building because they are tall pines, but you don't really know what's over there. And removing that buffer, you'd be removing probably 30 feet, 40 feet of trees to get that to sway. So that's a concern I have. And another concern of being in that area is, and I'll be point blank and clear, I live on Wells Drive. This doesn't affect me. I walk by it and I see it. But the bigger problem is how, maybe from the management side of how they've grown, there is a parking problem there. More recently, it's come up probably in the last month of a parking problem. And I don't know if it's COVID related with more companions and homemaker style people visiting the site as things have changed and how people get care now. So there's a lot of times in this site that the lots complete, the spots for the residents are never full. So I don't know if it's just a staff problem or not. I mean, there's a parking issue in this whole area. Unfortunately, now these people are dealing with it. But the biggest concern is, like Stanley says, where are you going to put the snow? Because they put it at both ends of the hammerhead. We have multiple trucks that use that hammerhead, both town trucks and private trucks. So, you know, it's a big concern at that hammerhead. And I'm trying to understand how the hammerhead coincides with the property line. Is there other things that?
Well, it appears that I'm sorry to interrupt. It appears that it's on their property, the hammerhead, but they must have to, the town must maintain it.
Maintain it. Okay. The plan doesn't look like there's a lot of green space, but to Commissioner Wood's point, that center island, I mean, it looks nice now with it. I think they have I don't know if they have a tree planted on it. They've been having some trees die over there. So, you know, but it has a lot of green space. You know, removing that center island, I kind of side with Commissioner Woods. It is nice to have there, but again, I don't live there. I just walk through there. So,
okay.
You know,
thank you, Commissioner.
The buffer is the biggest issue I think that I have as a commissioner, and I know that with a site plan modification, it doesn't go to public hearing, but you will have some disgruntled residents, I think.
Thank you, Commissioner Claffey. Commissioner Woods?
Yeah, just a comment on the snow, because it's a couple of the commissioners have brought it up. Well, I understand the concern. I think the concern for snowstorms typically is temporary. You know, when the storm is coming down, it's typically plowed. But almost always now, after the fact, loaders come in and they can relocate the snow within the property limits, usually with no problem at all. So they'll find a spot. I wouldn't let that make up your mind one way or the other. The snow will be able to be moved. There's enough green space on there, you know, within an hour or two with a loader back in the day after the storm, that it will definitely be placed in the right areas. So
yeah, but the snow, Commissioner Woods, the snow over there is not on that hammerhead is not moved by the owner of the property.
Again, the town comes in, Commissioner Claffey, with their snow blowers, and they blow and get rid of the snow in the town center and the town streets. Actually, that last storm we had, they were going up and down the streets to make sure that it was all pushed back. So I think they can accommodate it. That shouldn't be a determining factor.
Okay, Commissioner Fox, did you have a comment?
Well, I was just going to add my voice to those commissioners that are worried about the buffer and the snow shelf. But listening to Commissioner Woods, I have to agree with him. I don't think the snow there'd be that much problem with the snow if it's moved out right away. But as far as the buffers, you know, the trees, the vegetation, I have to agree with the other 3 or 4 commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fox. Do the commissioners understand that instead of having the parking going where it is now on the hammerhead, if you turned it and you put it on the southern end of the hammerhead, there's some bullards there, and then there's a sidewalk. There's room right there for 3 cars on the southern, and then that way you wouldn't have to cut into the buffer area. The buffer would remain untouched. Does everybody understand that? Commissioner Fox?
I can see that now, yeah.
Okay, Commissioner Claffey.
Again, from seeing 2 cars parked there for the past month, you'd have to make some modifications to there'll be some modification to the buffer, but not as much. But my concern is that hammerhead's there for a reason. It's not there for parking.
I understand. We're just trying to help the business out.
I understand.
They need 8 parking spaces, and I don't want this to cost them an arm and a leg with all kinds of underground work. But I also, in the same respect, I want to respect and protect the residents there. So I understand your comments that you don't want to cut into that buffer. So I think to move them on the southern end of the hammerhead there's still plenty of room for the town to make their turns and the trucks to make their turns. And it would be only a small modification to make it a little bit bigger.
When maybe when was the hammerhead put in? Was it 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago?
I'm not sure why.
I didn't know if there's any restriction. I don't know this, and that's why I'm asking the question. Are there any restrictions on the use of that hammerhead that was agreed upon between the town of Newington and the owners of said property? Because it is, the town had to gain access to their property to put it in.
If I may, commissioners, that hammerhead was installed when the unit was built. So there was a site plan approval for that at some point in the past. That's, the hammerhead was included on that.
So
Okay, Commissioner Sobieski has a question, and then we'll come back to you, Commissioner Claffey. Go ahead, Commissioner Sobieski.
My question is, and I'm sure Commissioner Claffey can answer this, do school buses go down Wells Drive North?
No school buses. The only school buses that come down Wells Drive, I've lived here for a year and a half. I have two aged kids that go to school, both Anna Reynolds and Martin Kellogg. The only school bus that comes down Wells Drive North is for handicapped children. All the school bus stop for Anna Reynolds for a regular school bus is at Main Street and Wells Drive.
So basically, you're saying that there's a small mini bus. I guess that's what.
Yeah, the double. It's the mini bus that comes down, turns around in there, and then the only other trucks that turn around in there are garbage trucks and town plow trucks and occasional, the delivery UPS size. I've never seen an 18-wheeler down there.
No, I didn't think so, but I'm just wondering. I just want to make sure that there's enough room that the school bus can navigate back and forth. That's all I was concerned.
Okay, Commissioner Claff, you're all set?
Yeah, I guess to Eric's point, I'd like to see some more info on when this was approved with the hammerhead. Where it just seems odd. Well, I mean, it was a great time to put a hammerhead in, but I just want to make sure there's no other restrictions against the hammerhead when the original site plan was approved. I assume there's not, but if I assume, we may be wrong.
Okay, Commissioner Claffey, thank you. Point well taken. I have a question for the applicant. I would suspect that you don't necessarily want to put all this underground work in if you don't have to. Is that correct?
That's correct. We came tonight to get your input, but we're hoping to be able to submit a revised set of plans to the town engineer for review to reduce the amount of underground detention based on the feedback he provided on the LID requirements.
Okay. What I would like to propose is that Renata work on this with staff, and before any changes are made on the plan, try to come up with a different proposal to add the necessary spaces, possibly exploring 3 of them at the southern end of the hammerhead. And Renata can check with town manager and highway and make sure that the hammerhead is still large enough to accommodate the trucks that are necessary to go down there. And then Renata can speak with the town engineer and possibly talk to him about converting the pavement over to a permeable brick. And maybe that'll help. I have no problems with the sidewalk. I agree with Commissioner Woods that right now the island is just dirt. If there's a problem with tires going over it, I can understand maybe reducing the size of it a little bit for in case the truck tires go over it. But I'd like to see the middle of it planted with flowers possibly at different times. It's a beautiful asset for the front of the building there. So I would ask the applicant to consider that and work with the town planner to come back in 2 weeks and with something that is a little bit more reasonable, hopefully. I'm going to go right now to the Renata, the town planner, because she hasn't spoken about this at all. And then I'll go back to commissioners' comments.
Mr. Chair, I really don't have too much to add. As designed right now, this application meets the site plan requirements. That being said, they designed this under impression that we still had an LID regulations, which require a significant cost of installation of this underground drainage. The applicant should consider, and I know that they had contacted their client, and obviously they're going to be interested in that, and consider redesigning some of this to minimize any kind of runoff impact to a point where they need, lesser, if any, improvements to the stormwater drainage. As far as location of parking spaces, we can talk about that. They can consider what you had recommended. I agree that it would be nice to maintain some buffer if we can. However, that needs to kind of fit their operational needs as well as, what we are talking about. So when they revise it, we'll refer it out to all the relevant departments for re-review, and then we'll see you next 2 weeks after this.
Okay. Can we try not to put any requirements on them to change any maps until we know exactly what we're doing? I don't want the applicant to go through any unnecessary expenses until we know exactly what the changes are going to be.
I mean, they have to change maps in order for us to understand the impact.
I understand that, but until the commission approves it, they can, sometimes you end up doing it more than once. I'm just trying to save them
So
some time.
we'll work with them. We'll see if we
All
can
right.
redline some stuff and calculate the impact to the stormwater that way. I'm not sure if that's possible or not,
Okay.
but
Well,
we can work with them.
Commissioner Claffey?
My question, I think, is more for, the planner, Eric, also. What I'd like to just get some more info when this was approved, however many years ago, and if it's under any special permit, because it seems like it's a little, I just want to make sure there's nothing underlying from when it was approved before. There's nothing in front of us, so we don't require that to be in front of us. But again, I think it's an odd way to get to somewhere, to go out and about and come down through a neighborhood to come in the backside of your property to get
We can
compliant.
provide you that history.
Yeah, I actually believe, now I think about it, I believe it's a lease parcel. I believe it's leased from the town. But I have to verify
I think
that.
there's more to this than what we see. I just want to see it all out there, because I know site plan modifications, we don't require public hearings. So again, I'm just trying to cut all angles as a person who lives here as a resident and as a vice chairman of this commission. I want to just make sure ducks are in a row as we improve things for our community. Thank you.
All right. I'm sure staff can run this by the town manager also and make sure that he doesn't foresee any problems in any other departments, and get the necessary information for you, Commissioner Claffey. I just think that if every time a small business had to come in and if they had to do all this work, they'd be out of business for a lousy 7 parking spaces. So I'm concerned about it. And I hope that staff works with them and tries to make this 7 or 8 parking spaces as reasonable as possible. Is there any other comments from commissioners?
Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Gill.
Yeah. This is a lease piece of property?
I'll go back to Mr. Hinckley to answer that.
I believe that, yes, when I first started here, maybe 14 years ago, they were developing that parcel, and I believe it is leased, correct. I believe they have a 99-year lease. Don't hold me to that. I'd have to check. But there
Okay.
was a site
The
plan.
the land to the south, is there something going on with that in the future?
Not that I'm aware of. That's owned by the housing authority. That piece to the south, the open field.
Just a thought is, if it's a lease piece, possibly them getting more land and having more parking down to the south.
Well, I think the piece to the south is for a future project, possibly. So, we don't want to put some parking in the middle of that. I think we want to stay on the parcel that they're leasing from right now. So I think staff will get, if they're leasing it, they'll check with their leasee, which is the town, and make sure that they have no objections to what's being done. Commissioner Sobieski?
Yes, I was going to make a suggestion that when they reconfigure where they were going to add the 5 spots to the west, maybe expand it a little bit more and start going around that angle there, and you could probably get another tree in there. You're probably looking at 8 spots you'd be able to do because of the safety of there. So that would pick up the additional spots they needed, I would think. So it's only, and I do agree with you, Commissioner Payne, or Chairman Payne, that we do need to put in, we have to limit the bituminous and put in block because the permeable pavement doesn't work, especially if they use sand on it. Only a suggestion.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Commissioner Sobieski. So is everything clear with the applicant? Do you have any questions?
No, I think we're good. I appreciate the input, and we're happy to work with town planner and town engineer here to get something that you folks will feel comfortable approving.
Just trying to, prevent any unnecessary expense and get you the necessary spots. Any other commissioners have any questions? All right. We're going to go to the next petition. Thank you very much. Oh, Commissioner Lenars, go right ahead.
Sorry, I didn't want to echo or elongate this conversation, but all of the commissioners brought up some good points. Chairman Payne, what you had talked about was trying to obviously work with the applicant as much as you could with respect to the buffer and the residents. I think it's so important, which I think all of the comments kind of echo those thoughts. And like you said, as far as the drainage concern, I don't know why or where it even came from as opposed to, or maybe it was because of the original LID requirements, but why make them go through all of that? And if you can maintain that buffer for the residents that Commissioner Claffey had mentioned on Wells Drive North and allowing the parking, I think it's a multi-level interest going on here, but I think all can be captured by working with the applicant and them working with the town. It's almost an easy one to do as long as everyone's willing to cooperate.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Lenars. Appreciate your comments. Is there any other comments from any commissioners? Okay, the next thing on the new business is the
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Renata.
Before you move, as a matter of procedure, does this commission normally act to table items, or do you just say we'll move to the next meeting?
It'll move to old business on our next meeting.
Okay, and then you'll table it.
Well, I'm hoping next meeting I can get this resolved and we can vote on it next meeting.
Okay. Okay.
So this will naturally, petition 40-20 will go to old business for next meeting. And hopefully by next meeting, you'll have this all worked out with the town engineer, staff, town manager, everybody, and you can present something to us and we can look it over and hopefully all the commissioners are happy with it. And then we can act on it next meeting. The next thing on the agenda is the 8-24. Does somebody have the reading of that?
I have it listed on the screen for you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, very good. Petition 02-21, the mandatory referral under the Connecticut General Statutes 8-24, acceptance of donation of approximately 10 acres of land located at 70 Culver Street. This was referred to us from the council, and I'll have our town planner, Renata, give us a report.
Mr. Chairman, I'm actually happy to handle that for the council.
Okay, go right ahead.
All right, give me just a moment. I'll pull up our mapping for this. So last night, the council discussed this presentation. The family itself is looking to specifically donate just over 10 acres of land, 10.10 acres exactly, of open space area. The specific property itself, which was referred by the council last night by motion, we're looking at a abutment of residential property all around. The site itself has a large amount of wetland area, so there is no proposal for any development. Actually, the family has requested that this property be left in perpetuity in its natural state, and we've actually received a request through the Superintendent of Parks and Grounds that if any park trail systems were to be placed in, he would request that language is included in there and agreed to by the family that the trail system itself is handicap accessible. The council is planning on holding a public hearing on the 26th of January, just before your next meeting, and would hope to act upon it by that meeting. So at this point, I'll leave it to the commission to discuss it, and if you have any questions that I can answer, I'm happy to do it.
Thank you very much, James. Commissioner Claffey?
Can you zoom that picture out a little bit that you have, sir?
That's the furthest point.
Okay, so where's the,
so
that's on Culver, right there where you're from. Okay, gotcha.
Yes, this whole parcel, you're right, let me go back to the main mapping. So this entire parcel area is the parcel in question. We back up to the Apple Hill development, as well as along Candlewick and Cambridge Drive. The parcel would be accessed directly off of Culver Street.
Okay. I'm trying to place, I know where Culver is behind, what's that, behind Lowe's?
Yeah, it would be off of Deming, yes. Deming and Griswoldville.
Okay.
Okay. Commissioner Fox? You have a question, Commissioner Fox?
I'm muted. There we go. The only question I had was answered by the town clerk, in that the donors had asked that, or actually demanded that the property stay as it is in perpetuity.
In perpetuity, correct.
Thank you. And so, it'd be open space. There'd be no construction on it, and that was one of my concerns. The only one, really.
Thank you, Commissioner Woods.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. A question for the town clerk. I missed your comment about the walking trails. All I heard was walking trails and handicap accessible. Can you repeat what you said?
Certainly can. The family, upon their request to have the land donated to the town, has requested review of any changes to the site. So should we decide to add walking trails or anything of that type to it, they're first requesting that they're consulted in it. And then the superintendent of parks requested that if we do go forward with that, that we make sure that they are handicap accessible to allow for access by anybody in the community.
Okay. And then this question would probably go back to you, or maybe the chairman or the town planner. Can they make that sort of request and while giving a piece of property to the town? Because once it's accepted, it is now the town's. So that would be like a stipulation?
That would be a stipulation in the deed itself, correct.
Right.
And that is one of the two stipulations. The second stipulation they've asked for is to name it the Haltner Family Preserve as well. And that was something that we can address on the council side for it, but they are looking to request that piece as well.
I'll finish with, I think it's a wonderful gift. I'm glad that it looks like the council is more than likely going to accept it. I don't think this commission is going to have a problem with it. And what a great way to pick up 10 acres of open space in perpetuity. What a wonderful gift, and my thanks to the family. And I hope the rest of the commissioners will agree that this is definitely a project that we should move forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome, Commissioner Woods, and I agree with you. It is a wonderful gift from the family, and it will make a fantastic open space for the town. Is there any other comments from any other commissioners?
I had a question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Clapper.
Under the 8-24, just to confirm, is the town required to send notification to all abutting property owners?
That we will be handling as well. The public hearing will be taking on the 26th at 6:45. Any abutting property owners will receive notification. We've already requested that information from the assessor's office.
So you're giving them less than a week and a half notice that this is happening?
Yeah, we have a little over that, correct.
Seems a little suspect, but I know in past 8-24s we've done, they've sometimes come back to haunt us for notification purposes. But if you think of less than a week notice that this is going on, I just don't see the rush. No offense, but I'm not on a council level. But I think a 2-week notice would be nice to somebody in COVID times, with the mail being so slow as it is, that we give these people a better notice that 10 acres of land is being owned by the town.
In addition, we will be putting signs out for the property, so it will be noticeable for anybody traveling that area, or if they are walkers, if you tend to walk in that area. So that will
I guess my question, Mr. Clerk, is what is the legality requirement with the 8-24 with the notice for all those residents? Is it a week and a half? Is it 10 days?
May I actually answer this?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Renata.
So through chair, there is no requirement to hold a public hearing on 8-24 referral. This is actually unusual that the town of Newington holds public hearings on these kind of transactions. And it's more than I've seen in other municipalities. So kudos to us for doing this. Normally, when we issue notices, they go out about 12 days before the hearing anyways. The way the hearing requirements are, is that you issue a legal notice, and then as a supplement to that, we send the letters, and that can go no more than 15 days, 15, before the hearing. So by the time people get it, it's 12 to 10 days anyways. So this kind of seems to be in that time frame.
And in addition to that, I will mention that council rules of procedure allow for no less than 5 days notice to the public for any public hearing. That includes our budget ones as well.
Okay, I just wanted to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Sobieski, do you have anything?
Yes, just one thing, a couple things. Number one, this is a great gift to the town. I definitely think I'm in favor of it. I just had one question for Eric. I know he used to be the assistant engineer. At some point, will this property be bounded, or is it bounded now? Do you know?
I don't know if they're, with the Candlewick survey, there's probably enough pins out there. The same with Apple Hill. I don't know if we have a survey on it or if one's going to be required by council.
All right, that's all I was wondering, because people sometimes have a tendency to dump leaves and everything else over there, and that's in areas. That's my only question. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. All right. Do we have I'll ask Renata. Renata, do we have a motion for the 8-24? Or
Renata?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I believe there's one included in the package you sent out.
Yeah. Would you, Commissioner Woods, be able to read that, please?
Yep. Do we have to wait and move it to old business, or can we do it in new business?
Move it to old business.
That's what I thought.
Okay, we'll make a motion to, if somebody could make a motion to move,
Make a motion to close petition 0221 and move to old business.
thank
Second,
you. Motion made by Commissioner Sobieski, seconded by Commissioner Fox. Any comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries to move to old business, and I would entertain a motion from Commissioner Woods for the 8-24.
Okay, a petition 02-21, mandatory referral under the Connecticut General Statutes 8-24 for acceptance of donation of approximately 10 acres of land located at 70 Culver Street. Move to issue a favorable 8-24 referral to the town council. Reasons: accepting this donation of land meets the objectives of the open space section of the town's 2020-2030 POCD, which reads in part, Newington will continue to protect its environmental resources, particularly in wetlands in Cedar Mountain, identifying additional open space and striving to create an open space system will be a priority, as will the stewardship of the community's land resources. Newington will continue to maintain its historic resources, housing stock, public buildings, parks, schools, and infrastructure at the highest quality possible. I believe that's it.
Very good.
Second,
It's a little further.
There's another page, sorry. Preservation of open space can help protect environmentally sensitive areas, provide wildlife habitat, preserve lands for recreational uses, provide fiscal and economic benefits, protect community character, and enhance quality of life. The overall goals are to create a townwide open space network, protect environmentally sensitive areas, and protect the small town character that is here now, and provide a sense of space and relief from intensive development.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Woods and seconded by Commissioner Fox, was it?
yep,
Okay. All in favor?
aye.
Opposed? Motion carries to accept the 8-24 in a positive way. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The next thing that's on the agenda is petition 39-20 for old business. If we could, I could have somebody entertain reading that motion. Commissioner Havens?
Certainly. Petition 39-20, zoning text amendment, section 3.19.84A.4. Transit-oriented development overlay district to provide height, area, and yard requirements for TOD zone. Fenroad Associates LLC, applicant owner Mark S. Shipman, 433 South Main Street, Suite 319, West Hartford, Connecticut. Contact. Move to approve the proposed amendment to the zoning regulations to reduce the minimum required lot area to 20,000 square feet and, with the modifications, 1, no changes to the existing regulation regarding the max building height. 2, no changes to the regulation regarding the minimum lot frontage required. Reasons for the approval: reducing the minimum required lot area to 20,000 square feet in TOD is consistent with the town's plan of conservation and development, and congruent with the purpose and intent of the TOD zone as stated under section 3.19.A.2 of our zoning regulations, which reads in part, such developments shall be in accordance with 2020 POCD's general goal of locating development in places and at densities to support the desired overall character of Newington, including smaller mixed land uses adjacent to transit stations. Page 24 of the 2020 POCD. Effective date: the effective date of the regulation amendment is January 27, 2021.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Havens. And seconded by Commissioner Woods. Any comments or questions? I think this is going to be excellent for the TOD area and hopefully
Take a vote.
hopefully bring in some development. I'm going to call a vote now. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And if I could have Commissioner Claffey, if you could read the next petition 41-20.
You're muted.
No, 41-20. You have 40-20.
Yeah, I know, but I gotta find, it's not in the packet other than the.
Oh,
other
it's
one.
up on the screen. If
Yeah, it's on the screen.
All right. Petition 41-20. Special permit section 6.6, sale of alcoholic beverages. Trans Berlin Corporation owner Renee Lopez, 2434 Berlin Turnpike, Newington, Connecticut. Applicant contact. Move to approve the special permit to allow sale of alcoholic beverages at existing restaurant at 2434 Berlin Turnpike. Reason for approval: the proposed activity meets the special permit criteria, section 6.6.4 and 5.2.6 of Newington zoning regulations.
motion made, do I have a second?
Second,
Commissioner Higgins.
Fox.
Seconded by Commissioner Fox. Any comments or concerns, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. We wish you the best. And I think that takes care of all the motions. I'll turn to Renata to talk about the petitions for scheduling.
You're muted, Renata.
I hate when this happens. As you can see on the screen, we will have several public hearings coming up to our next meeting. The first one of which being a home occupation special permit is required at 92 Old Muscat Drive. The next one will be for re-subdivision on 712 Cedar Street, Fenner Road Associates. And the last one listed is for a special permit for auto-related use in industrial zone and 260 Stem Road. This is currently subject of the enforcement that we had discussed early on tonight. So we have 3 public hearings, and we will have, in addition to that, some other business at the next agenda as well.
Very good. Commissioner Sobieski, do you have a question?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Nope.
Okay. Okay. If there's no questions, we'll go to the town planner's report.
So I have under my report four things to talk to you about. I would like, and I don't know, James, if you saw my email earlier, but the first item that I wanted to talk about was Newington Junction project. We have discussed some zoning considerations for that area. And the last time at the last meeting, the way we left it, we discussed how far out we would go with mailing notifications to the neighbors. I have, James, did you get that map that we emailed earlier? Can you show it?
Which version would you like to go with, the quarter mile?
Well, so let's start with the quarter mile, yes.
Quarter mile? All right. There you are.
So if I am to send out a written notification to a quarter mile radius, I would be notifying, I'm just looking for that email, just give me a second. Oh. So quarter mile radius is shown on your screen, and that includes 156 addresses that I would be mailing. As a cost that comes out to my office, just a mailing cost about $78. Obviously it costs more because, you know, there is like some work involved in that. The next distance that we looked at, and if you can show next map now, the half a mile one. So this includes mailing to 576 addresses, which is, in my opinion, excessive. And it comes out to close to $300 in just the mailing cost. So I wanted to talk to you and see if 1/4 mile would be sufficient, if we should perhaps increase that to like 300 feet. And then the other item that I wanted to talk to you was this idea that was discussed last time around about notifying people who rent properties here, which normally when you do zoning kind of things, you notify property owners. And the reason for that is that the property owner has a standing in what happens in that area. Presumably renters, if they don't like what happens next to them, they can move someplace else. That's how that was always considered by courts and all these other institutions. So my personal recommendation would be either to notify 1/4 mile or maybe 300 feet radius, notify owners only, and keep it at that unless you direct me otherwise.
Okay. Very good, Renata. I appreciate your work on this. I think the 1/4 mile, what you were suggesting works. I'm going to open it up to the commissioners. Commissioner Sobieski, what do you think?
I think that everybody is affected in that area. Whether you're down on Day Street in the residential area, Francis Avenue, Stoddard Avenue, everybody's affected with increase in traffic, in my opinion. I think everybody in that whole area should be notified.
Any other comments from other commissioners?
I think that, if I may, through you, Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
I want to know, when we looked at this while Fast Track was coming in, we were deciding the 2 TOD districts, this one here and the one at Fenn Road. What was the distances we used? Because I feel they're more than this here. The one I'm looking at the screen right here really goes not far down. Like, it seems like it just passes a few houses past the firehouse. So I would like to stay consistent with how we looked at the TOD districts. I know we put this one on the back burner a few years ago, but I think the distance was more than a 1/4 mile. I know Craig was, because it played integral to the district, to how close residents are to public transportation, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I don't think that what I'm looking at the screen right now really exemplifies that neighborhood.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't even include Chapman neighborhood, which only has access through that intersection.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Claffey. Renata,
So if I may, this was an idea.
Or is this the 1/2 mile?
The one that's on the screen right now is a 1/4 mile radius. And
Okay.
also, this is the area that we will send letters to unless we modify the radius, right? In
Okay.
addition to that, we probably should be posting several signs because that's what people see. I mean, if you're in Chapman Street and we have a sign on the intersection of Chapman and West Hill, or by this turn on Chapman Street, a resident on that street is likely to see it. The other side, the other part that we also will do will be some kind of online push. We will do some notifications through the whatever we use through our social media to notify those residents that utilize social media. I met today with the superintendent of the schools. And one of the things that I was considering doing with this neighborhood in particular is send notice to all the parents in all town and tell them that, you know, we're considering some changes in this area because there might be some interest in this, even from people that are not necessarily just neighbors here. One thing that I am now noticing as I'm looking at this map is my idea was to perhaps use those industrial parcels on Spring Street and street after that, and connect with those property owners and talk to them sort of ahead of this. Because I think if we have a TOD zone, those are probably would be the areas where it would most likely provide most incentive for something to happen. And this doesn't include. So there will be additional notifications at least up Willard Avenue a little bit further.
Okay, Commissioner Woods?
Yeah.
Now this, what you see right now is a half a mile radius. Like that goes all the way to West Hartford and into West Hartford actually.
Okay, thank you, Renata. Commissioner Woods?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm okay with a quarter-mile radius, and the town planner kind of stole a little bit of my thunder. I was going to suggest what we should do is put a fair amount of signs up, because I believe that is what's going to catch everybody's eye. And I thought her idea of notifying the Anna Reynolds school population was an excellent idea, as long as the superintendent agrees, and it sounds like she will. I think that's the way to get it out. I mean, $300 is not a lot of money, but no matter where you draw that line, you're never going to win. I think we could do more with signage. It's, again, that's what people are going to see as they're driving in and out every day. I really think that'll get us a lot more response, and that's what we want, whether it be negative or positive. Hopefully it's positive, but we take both.
Not to be cheeky or anything, but $300 is a big money for my budget.
Commissioner Fox, did you have a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have to agree that quarter mile is not enough. We need to go out at least a half a mile as far as neighborly notifications. But I agree with the town planner that just about everybody should get a notice, because this neighborhood would be changed beyond recognition, and I think we need to get the opinions of an awful lot more of our residents than those that live nearby. And so I have to agree with Commissioner Woods about the signage. I think Commissioner Sobieski and I happen to making a lot of comments about what we thought was the lack of signage when the Gibbs Oil development first came up. So signage, and the social media, and I think everybody that needs to will get.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Fox. Commissioner Claffey, did you have something?
I just, as a past resident living over there on Hampton Court, which is in a half-mile radius to the backside of the property, and driving that neighborhood almost daily to go to Anna Reynolds to drop kids off at school over the past 6 years. A quarter mile is not enough. If you look at that quarter mile on there, look what's residential, who's going to be the proponents, and who are going to be the naysayers. I mean, it doesn't even touch many houses on Francis Avenue, and that's where a lot of the disruption in this has come from, or discord, I should say, not disruption. And then how many cars use that Francis Ave already to cut back to residential neighborhoods? There's this again, it gets to, it doesn't even touch your residents that live at 34, 38 Chapman Street. That's that bone of contention at that intersection of Chapman. You're lucky there hasn't been more problems there, because it's a horrible corner. I don't think that the quarter miles, if you're going to go out and send something to all the parents at Anna Reynolds, I don't think they all live within that quarter mile. I just think if you're going to do that, you might as well go to a half mile. We did it with the TOD. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Commissioner Fox?
No, I'm done. Thank you.
You're all set? Okay. The notification to the school from the school, I believe, is like a bonus. So if I'm not mistaken, Renata was going to send everything out within either one of those, either a quarter mile or half mile. And then as a bonus, she was working with the schools. to send out to that whole area. Do you still feel that even with sending out the letters from the school that we still need to go to a half-mile radius?
I do, because my house now on Wells Drive feeds that school. So you're going to notify me on Wells Drive, but you're not going to notify 130 or 101 Francis Ave. It's outside the quarter mile. That has more impact on that resident than it technically does on me when my kid gets bused to school from Wells Drive.
Okay.
So sending something to a resident of Anna Reynolds who goes to Anna Reynolds has minuscule bearing on this intersection to people who live in that section of town. To me, it doesn't. I can bypass that and go down Fenn Road and get there to Anna Reynolds. I choose
Thank
not
you.
to, but
Thank you, Commissioner Claffey. I appreciate your opinion. Any other commissioners have a comment? Commissioner Havens?
Yes, whether we do the, mailing for a quarter mile or a half mile, I think one of the issues that was brought up last time, signage was out, but it was ineffectively placed. We would need to move the signage out to at least a half mile and increase it. Almost every intersection that feeds into this area should have a sign, whether it's on Francis, on Day, further down Willard by, Spring, or Willard, towards Lloyd or Harding, going down West Hill over to Fenn Road, and even up towards Anna Reynolds.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Havens. Anybody else?
So then I have another question with regards to these notifications. I anticipate at least doing some kind of heavy duty notices at least twice. And I would like to do that before we start the process. Something where I post a bunch of signs and send letters. And I was going to actually ask schools to send to every school, not just Anna Reynolds, but just to send all the parents across town information that, we're going to be discussing this. But the issue is we don't have a plan yet. So we would like to get people in and have them tell us what they see as something that they would want here. But before I can issue that letter, I need to kind of like frame that message with you a little bit. And then when the hearing is to occur, then we have to notify again and do perhaps the same level of notifications. Whether we choose quarter mile or half mile is relevant to some extent, but not that relevant. Like that's just one of the things that, I'll deal with. So when we post the first notice out, how do I say to people, we are going to start talks on this, and this is not going to be one night. It's going to occur over a period of meetings. Stay involved, get involved, something along those lines. But when would you like to start these discussions? Because chances are probably the at least first meeting will be people coming in thinking that something is happening here and talking about 500 parking spaces and God knows what else. So, so to make like all of this more efficient, to make me not waste my notice, you don't waste your time, and people actually be able to provide us with some good feedback. Like how should we organize that, and how do we tier notifications? Do we start smaller and then increase as the time goes? Do we start bigger and then decrease as the time goes? Like what do we do?
Okay. Commissioner Woods?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Unfortunately, for the last 5 years, our newspapers have kind of dwindled, and years ago we counted on them. This would have gotten picked up by one of the local reporters, and we would have gotten it reported in 3 different papers, probably several times. But is there a way, we have obviously 2 or 3 very active social media sites. Is there a way that we can get this out, put some sort of letter together like we did, we meaning the commission, because it was prior to me sitting on here, but as you did for this piece when you first talked about it, as well as the Cedar Street station, and see what happens there, what kind of reaction you get. You know, maybe it's positive, maybe it's negative, and if it is positive, great. If it's negative, then you can kind of maybe formulate a strategy on how you want to move forward by their reaction. They are, obviously, as we all know, they're vocal.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Woods.
Yep.
Renata?
That idea will work if we come up with a plan. If we
Correct.
can say something, so to a sense, we are considering, allowing perhaps some conversions of larger homes that are like 2,000, 3,000 square feet. When people want to do it, our zoning regulations will allow that to be done if somebody is interested in doing that. We are considering looking at these industrial parcels for perhaps TOD overlay if the owners of those parcels choose to do that. And we would seek input from residents on those ideas. I can say something like that. Otherwise, that waiting for people to vent on social media, I don't know that that's going to work if I don't give them something to comment on.
Oh, I would agree, Renata, that we need to have at least a concept of where we're looking to go and the area that we're looking to do it in. You can't just throw it out blindly because you're going to get questions that you don't have answers to.
Renata, perhaps we could run it more as a public information meeting to gather thoughts and ideas, with some generalizations, and then put together a much tighter plan for the public hearing, which is pretty much what you're talking about. Just try that avenue.
Would commission be open to doing something like that as a special meeting of the commission?
Yeah, hold on 1 minute. Commissioner Havens, did you have a comment?
Just a question, Mr. Chairman. If memory serves correctly, this was well before my time on the board and even really paying that much attention, to be honest. I remember back when they were doing the busway, they were talking about the 1/4 mile and 1/2 mile. I seem to recall that they had some overlays and possible plans back then. Do we still have access to those? Is that something we can also, bring forward now? See what people were looking at and talking about, 5, 10 years ago, whatever the time frame was.
I'm not sure if Renata has found any of that stuff or not.
I did not know that existed, so I didn't look, but I can look for it.
Okay.
Yeah, we might have, we obviously have something from that time. I don't know what we have for the overlays or whatnot, or what we did for the mailings. We can look.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Renata, that we need to have it on our agenda for a few meetings. My only concern would be that we're starting to get a bunch of things to come in, and I just, I don't think we could do it our next meeting. I by the time you notify, but I think that we should have it on for a few meetings. We could have it on as part of the agenda, as an information before we get into our meeting, spend a little bit of time on it, or do it at the end of the meeting, or, I'm even open to a special meeting if we have to.
So how about this? I mean, this is going to take on for a while, and it should, because this is going to be impactful, and people really should not only know about it, but have some time to think about it. If I, for next meeting, put together some kind of notice and then show that to you, and then we can advertise that notice, whether that is, from now until March, the commission anticipate discussing this. Our meetings are on such and such days, log in, something along those lines, or the commission will hold special meetings to address this. So we could do something along those lines. So I'll come up with something, show you next meeting, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay, sounds good, Renata. Commissioner Claffey, do you have a question?
Yes, I want to go back. Was there not maybe was it the Newington Junction Committee? I don't recall. I remember I was around when this was all going down. That's why I kind of am playing a little bit of the devil here, but that was I think that they had a committee. I don't think they're still around, but I think one of the members is still in town here, if I'm not mistaken, of how they got everything out. It seems like it's, it gets back to that word charrette. I think they want to see something before, even if it is, it's hard to do. I know it's hard to charrette when you don't know really kind of have a, even a sketch.
Nobody's ever going to see anything because this is just a proposal of regulations, and then everybody will have another bite of the apple when something comes in. If I could finish, Commissioner Claffey, if I could finish, I think what we want to do though is hear from the people on what they like and what they don't like, so that then we can draft up the regulation.
But you have to physically show these people nowadays. You physically have to show them what something may look like in this area. We've heard from one proponent or person who says they don't want this 5-story building. Well, none of us on the commission believe that that's a concept, but that's what they hear through social media. You physically have to show these people something that they can get their hands wrapped around of what it might look like. To say that, 82 Willard Ave is going to be demolished and add a 4-story building, that people can't wrap their concept. That's why they've been asking for charrettes. It kind of goes back to when we did our POCD with the consultant, like he asked these questions and he went out to these people and kind of allowed them to understand what we were actually doing visually.
Okay.
Something.
Okay. I understand, Commissioner Claffey. And I'm sure the town planner will put some things together for us when we get to that point. Any other commissioners have a comment?
Commissioner Fox?
Commissioner Fox, go right ahead.
All right, thank you. I've been trying to get your attention. Only Commissioner Claffey kind of stole my thunder, because I do remember the charrettes, especially concerning Newington Junction. They didn't all go over so well, but I do have to agree. I have to agree with Commissioner Claffey that they want to see what we have in mind. And you said, we don't want them to be, worried about 500-car parking lots and 5-story buildings. But we, as the town planner has constantly been saying, we need to have a definite plan in mind. And I would like to see, I know not everybody, not all of us want to go to special meetings, but we may have to have some, or at least have conduct some, I hate that term, charrettes, so people can come, see what's going on, make their comments, and then we can go from there. Thank you.
Commissioner Havens?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand where people are coming from, saying that, especially as Commissioner Claffey phrased it, people need to have something that they can, quote unquote, get their hands around and, have a good visual idea. What we're talking about now, at least the way I'm seeing it, is that we're talking about strictly regulations, an overlay. So it eventually comes down to what the individual property owners decide to do or not do. We can't really, go to the public and say, well, this is what it's going to be, because, John Q. Smith at 27, Make-Believe Boulevard, which is in the overlay zone, he wants to put up a 5-story building, but his neighbor doesn't want to do anything. You could do both in that overlay zone, but that could be 10 years down the road, and we're trying to make a regulation now. So we have to phrase it correctly so that people aren't going to set up in arms like, oh my God, we can't have 500 parking spaces. Well, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the ability for the landowners to do something that's not currently in the regulation.
So how about, all of this actually will happen at some point in this process. I think conversations about this are going to be probably intensive enough to demand their own space once we tease out how do we go about doing this to begin with, which is, I don't want to start noticing people that that these discussions are happening while we're trying to figure out how to discuss it, right? So we should, and I agree, and we will, provide an examples from other communities of, if you were to allow an overlay zone on this industrial parcel, this is type of a building that might happen there. If the property owners want it, if there is a developer, if there is a market, if there is demand for it, if there is no demand, nothing will happen. So all of this will come, but we need to start by deciding how do we even do it. So if we're talking about perhaps these industrial parcels, perhaps some increasing gentle density, then I can find pictures that show a historic home going from like 1 to 3 units and 4-story, 5-story building. I think here 4-story would not be that far off from what's happening in West Hartford. Right down the street from here, there is a 4-story building across from Stop and Shop. So we can even use that building as an example of what could happen in one of these industrial zones. So I'll put some stuff, I'll put as much as I can. Also, my secretary retired, so next meeting is going to be stressful for me, but I'll put as much as I can in a way of visual help, in a way of, what we could do with the map, and then we'll address at the next meeting. Do we proceed this way or do we course correct?
Thank you, Renata. We have a few more questions from the commissioners. Commissioner Haggerty, and then Commissioner Sobieski, and then Commissioner Woods, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kind of the chicken or the egg predicament here. I can appreciate, especially Commissioner Claffey saying, you need to show people something. You need to give them some sort of direction to provide them, or else minds just kind of start wandering. But at some point, you kind of just have to start somewhere. And, people are going to give you feedback. And I think Commissioner Wood said that, at some point you have to start somewhere, and people are just going to show up, let them, give them a blank canvas. And at first it's just going to be, this is what I don't want, and this is what I don't want. And then you can kind of start narrowing it down and then start focusing some ideas.
Great.
As far as, quarter mile versus half mile, I think we kind of addressed that, but this is a big thing. It's a big project. I think, a quarter mile was like an $80 cost and a half mile was $300. So I think for an extra couple $100, I think it's worth it to push it out. And my last question is, I know a few times we have talked about this. There was the gentleman who owned the rental property behind the proposed Dunkin' Donuts had wished that his renters were notified because the owners of the units were, don't even live in the state. So I'm not sure how the commission feels about that. I liked Renata's point that only owners would be notified and not necessarily renters. I would agree with that.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Haggerty, for those comments. I think she'll also notify the condo associations or the associations besides the owners, if I'm not mistaken. And I agree with you on the half a mile. Commissioner Sobieski, and then Commissioner Woods, please.
Thank you. I remember that with Andrew Brecker, when he put that on there with charrettes and everything else, and he was disrupting the entire area, and people were very upset. I think what it is each one of these TOD zones is different. This is more in a residential area versus where Myricone is and versus where the other one would be on Cedar Street. So I think that has to be looked at very closely. These people here, and I know I walked the road with you one time, Chairman Payne, when we went down, I think it was Spring Street. One of the owners was very upset and said that, he put a lot of money into his place there and that he wanted to, he bought it with the expectation, excuse me, of staying there. And he did not want to have any type of interference where his property values would go down. I think at that time, Commissioner Camello was on also. So, it's a real delicate area that you have to look at. I understand that, okay, we're looking at it. We want to generate money for the town. I understand that. I understand it's a TOD. But our height requirements are only 3 stories, not 4. And I'd be kind of concerned with the fact that, like, we have this huge high-rise building in the center of town that looks like hell when you come down a mountain. There's nothing else that's that tall. So I'd be very concerned with the height. And what West Hartford did is they allowed that in there. And I get concerned with trying to change the character of the area. That's my concern. I also think that Commissioner Claffey is right. You need to have something that people can look at. Without that, and just throwing up some type of sketch with parking lots and buildings and stuff like that, that's not a plan, and it's like a pie in the sky type thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Woods.
Yeah, I guess I'm looking at this a little bit different than some of the other commissioners. We don't have a plan other than uses that we want to see on the property that's there. We don't know if it's going to be a 1-story, 2-story, or 3-story. I mean, we're still now talking, even the commissioners are still talking about a 500 space parking lot that never existed because somebody put a conceptual plan in front of us, yet that still gets thrown out. This is, well, I'll admit this piece is a little unusual because in my mind, I see one of the largest industrial tracts of land we have in the town surrounding us here that could be open for redevelopment that abuts residential in some areas. So we do have to take into consideration the residents in that area, but there's a lot of land there that can be redeveloped. And I think we need to get smarter on how we're going to do that. It's happening all around us. Obviously, the last time we looked at this as a commission and as a town is when the busway was coming in, which is now almost 10, 12 years ago, I think. And they were all for development as long as there wasn't any housing. Now, obviously, when we're in a TOD zone, we're going to need some sort of housing. So housing has to be a piece of this. Otherwise, we're just wasting our time. And, if the community comes out and a huge outcry that they absolutely positively don't want housing, then I think we should move forward. If housing isn't a piece of this, it needs to be a substantial piece of this for it to be successful and for this to attract any sort of developer. That's where the market is right now.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Woods. If there's no other commissioners that have any comments, I think Renata has a general idea of what to do for our next meeting to bring this back to us. And I know, Renata, you have a couple other items in your town planners report. If you could just give us a brief outline of the other remaining items, and then the commissioners are going to have to read this information, and we'll take it up at the next meeting in more depth.
Sure. So this next stuff should be quicker. The first item that I wanted to tell you is I had sent in an email twice the latest version of the affordable housing plan. I understand that prior to hiring me, you have tabled you as a planning commission are expected to comment on the affordable housing plan, and I believe it's the town council who in the end will be adopting it. So the question to you is, now that I have emailed it to you twice, have you read it? And if you read it, do I need to ask Mr. Chelder to come to your next meeting for discussion on this? If you haven't read it, he had indicated to me that he had some other obligations in February, so I'm not sure if he will be able to attend your next meeting prior to March. So you tell me now whether I bring him to the next meeting so that you can comment on the affordable housing plan, or do we just sit on this plan for a little while longer? We do have some time to adopt this, but I would like to get this over with and taken care of.
Can we, I could use a little extra time to review it, and so I'm prepared for Glenn. So I'm wondering if we have the commissioners read it, we could talk about it at our next meeting or two, and then possibly have Glenn in the beginning of March if we need him. And then if we don't need him, then we could send this up for adoption. Any other commissioners have any comments concerning this? Okay, so we'll take has everybody read through the housing plan? Or if you haven't read it, then dig into it, and we'll have a little bit more of a conversation about it at our next meeting. Is that all right, Renata?
That is okay by me, yes.
Okay.
All right, so then the next item is, when I sent you my report last month, I addressed the fact that, you know, when we talk about being friendly to businesses, what I see in our regulation is, you know, we have some regulatory issues with regards to how much we require of people to do in a sense of development. But problem in my mind that is bigger than that, and I tell you this because I speak to applicants all the time, and I know that they're more likely to be okay when they have set requirements, but they can expect a decision certain way than when they are at the discretion for these special permits. So with that in mind, we pulled this table that identify all the commercial zoning districts and how we regulate uses in the commercial zoning district. I also told you last time that I thought that our regulations significantly lacked in definitions. And if you look, especially like second page of this table, we have almost no definitions for anything. So one of the ways to improve the regulations and be more business friendly is, you know, Eric and I will start digging in and working on providing definitions for all these different uses and showing that to you. But I would like you to, meanwhile, take this table home and look at where we allow things subject to zoning permit and where we allow things subject to special permit. And when there is an opportunity to not use the special permit, let's talk about those instances, because that definitely will streamline the process and help us out. The other part that I would like you to think as you're looking into these tables is if we could regulate by impact. So one of the things that I really like is, you know, restaurant may be allowed by zoning permit only if it has less than, I don't know, 30, 40, some number of parking spaces. Once it crosses that threshold of parking requirement, that means it will generate enough traffic to warrant some kind of concern in that zoning district. And in that case, it could trigger the special permit. So there are these like tiered approaches to uses when, you know, for example, this alcohol liquor permit, this should have not been in front of the commission. This was such a straight application that we should have been allowed to sign off on that under the zoning permit. It would help them, it would make everything more quicker. Now, if a big restaurant comes in and has like 200 parking spaces, that is not appropriate for town planner or zoning officer to be signing on. That is appropriate to go in front of the commission. So those are kind of things that I would like you to look at this list, see what you think, and then think about those impact type of approvals. And then the next thing is, I told you I was like totally chicken pro, chicken lady pro planner. So the next proposal is to amend our zoning regulations, if you like this approach, and essentially allowed the keeping of poultry in all of our residential districts, subject to these things. So what I know is that people don't necessarily care if their neighbors have chicken, as long as those chicken are kept properly away from my property line. You know, if neighbor has separation, like distance keepings for coops, and if they have to maintain particularly feed and dispose of waste certain way, like those are the things that people care about. Nobody really hates chicken. People don't like the fact that somebody will put like a chicken poop pile next to your property line, and as you're grilling outside, that is right next door to you. So I would like you to read through these. These are literally copied from what we did in Meriden after we conducted a significant research. I think we looked at like 15 different towns of all kinds of sizes and areas for these regulations. So take a look at this. Let me know what you think. This could be like a quick amendment that is really not perhaps a big deal. And while this is really not, you know, economic development related, it will help us come spring once we start getting phone calls from people. So, and the last thing that I wanted to mention is the town manager sent a memo, sort of like a New Year's resolution to employees. And my department, I got charged to reach out to businesses in town. We are formulating like the best way to do that. I did go out and talk to few, but the problem is that, you know, I don't have anything to really offer them. So I go and say, how are you doing? And I'm really concerned, but when they turn to me for some help, we don't really have much. So we have agreed to set a meeting with all of the banks in town that are willing to participate in this, and see how we can find directly from the banks what kind of assistance they can offer. And then I will go to businesses and sort of be this like intermediary link, hopefully help them out that way, as well as with like PPP loans and some stuff that we can help a little bit. So that is, I believe, everything that I had for this report.
That's fantastic, Renata. That's great to hear. Do any commissioners have any questions for Renata or comments? Okay. Under communications, we have the CROG zoning reports. I appreciate you putting the CROG reports in our report. I think those come in handy. Do you have anything else to add to that, Renata or Commissioner Sobieski? Okay, if there's nothing else, we'll go to public participation. We'll open it up to the public. And
Commissioner Payne, I talked.
Go ahead, commissioners.
I talked to Renata. I'm just going to forward her the changes, the reports, and then she can add it to the packet. It's easier.
Yeah, that was a great idea. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Claffey, and then we'll go to the public.
In the CROG report, Stanley, are you saying you're not sending us the email anymore that lists the whole state of CROG reports? We clarify that?
Unmute Stanley.
Thank you. When I sent out the last one, I asked anybody that wanted it, let me know. You and I think Dave Linares and the two town councilors, Mike Fox, said that they still wanted it, so I will forward those to you still.
Okay, so it's okay. Thanks. And then, so then correct me, maybe Renata, explain to me why we're getting the CROG list in the back now of the our paperwork. I'm just trying to understand why I'm seeing things like about Bristol and, I understand why I'd see something for West Hartford, but does it impact Newington?
So this ties in our conversation last time around when Mr. Sobieski asked if you saw your CROG reports, and I wasn't sure what he was talking about. So normally, again, in my experience, we did not send these to the Planning Commission, but I was under impression from that discussion last time that you either looked at these and I thought that planner sent it to you, or you had some other kind of discussion. So I personally do not really care which way you want these. If you want, I get them, as does Mr. Sobieski. So I can include them in your packet, or he can send you the list. It makes no difference to me which way we do it. You tell me what you want.
No, I didn't know. I'm just seeing a change from what we were doing, and I'm fine if you want to include.
I am the change.
Yeah, I think some get the email sent, and it's handy to have the town planner review everything and then send us a copy. So as long as it's not a problem, maybe we could just continue it the way we're doing it.
It's not a problem. I look at these as I get them anyways.
Thank you very much, Renata. I'm going to go to the public now. Rose Lyons has the floor.
Okay, Rose Lyons, 46 Elton Drive. Stop me if this is inappropriate. I know I'm not supposed to speak to anything that's on the agenda, but the Meadowview project was quite controversial at the time it was built. And if I'm not mistaken, parking was one of the problems and continued to be after visitors and tenants infringed on the housing authority's property. And there is a lease in place, I would suspect, because I went back and looked and saw there was an 824 referral to the TPZ on that lease. And I know when the Transition Academy moved into the area, the neighbors came and spoke against it, not knowing what was going on there. So the more that they're informed, I think the better it's going to be for both Meadowview and for the town. One big thing was they didn't want open space being used for parking, and Commissioner Gill's suggestion to move some parking spots south would be a great idea if that was what the people in the town wanted to see. But I think you were right in getting more information before you go ahead with this. As for Newington Junction, the Junction Village Transit Orientated Development Concept Memo is on file on the town website. And that was the Newington Junction study, I think, that was done by CROG. And the big contention there was no charrette held. It was all done with a subcommittee, and the consultant, even at the meeting that I attended, said it was the first report that he had ever done that there was no charrette held. So I think it's very important, too, as you're going forward with what you want to do at Newington Junction, that the town residents are informed. I know that I, up until recently, when I dumped all this stuff, had a list of all the streets around that area, the names of the residents, and so forth. So as in other things in this town, as they pass from one person to the other, I keep asking for some kind of continuity so that the information that has already been hashed out is on record for the next person who comes in to look at. So I'm hoping that Town Planner Minor left something for the new town planner. It's very difficult when you have a new town planner, you have new staff, and you have new members on the board. At least I think it is. As to Commissioner Claffey's comments regarding the 824 referral being moved so quickly and being suspect and questioning what's the rush, I can't help but think the same thing as I watched during this COVID crisis at how TPZ has fast-tracked so many applications brought up for public hearing. I think it's time to slow down a bit. It's one thing if it's a cut and dry application and you can just move it forward, but I think when there's some gray area there, let's give it some consideration. Even now, people aren't going to be able to attend a charrette, or they're not going to be able to attend a public hearing. And I bet you tonight the only people that are listening are me, Carol, and Gail. So it's just not a good time to be doing this. If you have applications, like Commissioner Payne said, that you have lots of things pending, bring them up. You know, maybe that's something that has to go forward. I don't know. I'm not privy to that information. But as a resident watching, I'm asking you, please just slow down. The town council's doing the same thing, but last night they explained that they needed to get it done because it had to be, it has something to do with the family or something like that. But in any case, the 824 referral tonight was for a gift to the town. I don't see any downside to it. It's open space, and that's something we don't have here in this town. So thank you very much. Stay safe, stay well, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Rose. Is there anybody else from the public that'd like to speak?
Nobody else is on.
Beg your pardon, James?
We don't have any other public on other than NCTV.
Okay. Thank you very much, James. Remarks from commissioners. Anybody else have anything else? Commissioner Haggerty, go right ahead.
How did we leave it off? How the C-Croc stuff is going to be sent out? I apologize, Commissioner Sobieski. I read your email as, if you don't want me to send this to you, let me know and I won't send it to you. I missed that part. So if you guys are, would just still like to be included in that.
I will be including all the letters in the packet each month.
And I guess what we could do is Commissioner Sobieski can continue to email everybody, Commissioner Sobieski, and then we can still, Renata can supply us with the necessary printouts in case we haven't looked at our email. And that way we stay on top of anything that's coming in through CROG.
That's
So
fine,
we
'cause I get like 4 a month, so that's no problem.
Okay,
I did
very
have,
good.
I did have a question though.
Go ahead, Commissioner Sobieski.
I just lost. Oh, I know. Yes, I agree with what Ms. Lyons said about the property. I know Commissioner Claffey was wondering why it got moved so quickly, but in my opinion, I think there is a time constraint on this. I could be wrong, but I think they wanted to act on it as soon as possible. And I think any gift to the town of Newington that's open space, as I said earlier, is a blessing for the town because we don't have a lot. And I'd like to see this still try to remain where there's some wildlife and people can walk in trails and stuff like that, because that's becoming more and more popular because of the COVID. I'm sure it'll stay popular. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sobieski. Commissioner Haggerty, did I answer all your questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, very, very good. And Commissioner Claffey, do you have a question or comment?
Question we brought it up 2 weeks ago. If there's been an update on the Day Street Francis with the cars in the right of way and et cetera, et cetera. That was, and we talked about chickens last week. I got an update on chickens. So has there been any update with, this so-called dispute with cars parked in the right of way over on Day Street, Cashway Lumber, the old Cashway Lumber?
Not to my knowledge. The few times I've gone by, there haven't been any cars out there, and I haven't got any calls from PD that there's an ongoing issue. So if they're there, they're very temporary, and I'm just not seeing them. So, but I haven't got any outright complaints.
But are we getting an understanding there the right of way is your concern to enforce, or is it the police department's enforcement? That's what I'm trying to understand, because it's on a street, not on a house or a per se building.
Yeah, my understanding is there's some kind of agreement as to where where he's allowed to park these vehicles, whether it is the old Francis Avenue right away, because it did used to go all the way out to West Hill Road at one point in the past. So, and he's aware of that as far as I know. I haven't been asked to enforce it, honestly. And I don't know what PD's position on it is. I think last month I got a call from the chief that there was a vehicle parked there. And I don't know how they acted. I was off that day and I went out the next day and it was gone. So I didn't get any other feedback on it.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioners have any comments or questions? I think we covered a lot of things. I'm going to go to the closing comments. I just want everybody to remember, I mean, we have moved some things forward fast. We've done a lot of work for restaurants in the past, and we've moved things through the staff in a very timely manner. And we're doing the same thing with applications. When you take too long on an application, it creates a lot of cost and risk for the developers, and we're just trying to move things along because of the times. I really don't appreciate being in the insinuations that we're doing things underhanded or anything like that. I think we're handling things correctly. As you noticed, we didn't approve the new meadow right away because of the concerns with the possible buffer with the residents there. So we're trying to take everything the best we can, and I appreciate all the commissioners. I think everybody cares about what's coming in, and I think we're all doing a good job on it, and I think we need to continue. So I want to thank everybody. I'd like to thank James and the town planner and Mr. Hinckley. I think we did a great job, and I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Commissioner Claffey. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Fox. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you all.
Yep.